Alright, so the first thing that we'll do is set our weld mode. Since we have 035 aluminum wire in there with 4043 and we want to run pulse on pulse, we'll go to mode number 98. So we change that with this toggle switch here. We'll go to 98. So then once we got that done, we're done with our weld mode. We can go on down this list. First thing is pre-flow, so when you pull the trigger, gas flows out for 0.2 seconds before the weld begins. Post-flow, at the end of the weld, gas flows for 2.7 seconds after the weld ends. So we'll just turn that down to 2.5. Our run-in speed is, we can change that to a lower wire feed speed, and then on our start we can set it for how long it's supposed to run at that lower speed. So if you had something really dirty or really thick metal that for some reason the arc didn't immediately start, you could set your start timer right there and then your run-in speed right there. We'll leave those off for the most part. And next is arc control, and that's basically the frequency of pulsing. When we have it set at pulse on pulse, my preference is to have it a negative arc control. You can go down from -10 to a +10. If we were running a regular pulse, mode 149, I would recommend a positive arc control, maybe a 3 or a 5, to give a good looking bead. And then on your crater fill, at the end of aluminum welding, lots of times there's a crater left, and so we have that timer set at 0.3 seconds. So when you're done with your bead and you let go of the trigger, the wire will continue to feed for 0.3 seconds, and then the arc will extinguish. And then on our burn back, what that does is keeps the wire from burning into the puddle and burning into the tip. And so we have it set right now at 0.02. If you did have any issues with the wire getting stuck in the puddle, then you could come back and turn that burn back up, and then that would burn the wire back a little bit higher from the puddle so it didn't get stuck. And then the last thing on this list is the spot timer. So if you had a lot of plug welds and you're going to weld a bunch of them up together and you didn't want to monitor each one, you could just turn it to 1 second. So anytime you pull the trigger, it will weld for 1 second. And so if you had a lot of welds like that and you just wanted to pull the trigger and hold it over, that would work. But if not, if you're just going to do miscellaneous welding, then just leave the spot timer off. So then we'll go back up to the top. So we've got our weld mode set, and the next thing to set is our wire speed. So wire speed is set on the Python gun at the gun handle itself, so you can adjust that up and down. If you're welding on something thicker, you'd want to have a higher wire speed, it would be hotter. When on thinner material, you can turn that down. And then the last thing to adjust is our trim. So what trim is, it's the arc length of the cone itself between the wire and the work. And so it starts out at 1, that's the perfect medium. So as you turn this trim up, the arc length is higher and the cone gets wider. And so you can turn that up to get a little bit of a wider bead, and then if you wanted to turn that down on thinner material, you could turn that down and the cone will get smaller, so the arc length gets shorter. And so it does reduce the volts a little bit when it does that too. So on really thin stuff, you may turn that trim down, and really thick stuff, you may turn that up, but the main adjustment is wire speed, and then the trim is the fine tuning.